Switzerland has everything going against it. No oil, no access to the sea, 60% of its territory is made up of mountains. Yet, 1 in 7 Swiss is a millionaire. A commercial employee, a cashier, or even a receptionist earns in average 52,000 euros a year. An engineer, 102,000 euros per year. This small country of 9 million inhabitants intrigues with the consistency of its quiet, methodical, and discreet successes. So, how did Switzerland turn its worst flaws into its greatest assets? Let me tell you the exceptional story of the country that had nothing going for it. So, most wealthy nations have secret weapons. Some discovered black gold. Switzerland received neutral gold. Black gold literally is oil that you sell for real gold. Neutral gold is the neutrality that attracts others' gold. Contrary to what you might think, famous Swiss neutrality wasn't actually a choice, but a series of circumstances. From the beginning, Switzerland was an unstable country. It was known for selling some Europe's best mercenaries to the highest bidders. In fact, since its creation in 1506, the Papal Guard has always been Swiss. Congress of Vienna, 1815. Napoleon is defeated. Great Britain, Austria, Prussia, and Russia seal Switzerland's fate. The greatest powers want to pacify Europe. By mutual agreement, they imposed neutrality on Switzerland. A few years later, the Federal Constitution of 1848 finally ends Swiss mercenary work. It was an industry that has nonetheless been a great part of its economy. The great powers plan succeeded. Concretely, Swiss neutrality isn't a moral choice, but an obligation. But unlike oil that you can sell immediately, neutrality remains a diplomatic status, a signature on paper. For 100 years, Switzerland remains an average country, neither rich nor poor. It's in 1914 that everything changes. The belligerents of the Great War are looking for a safe place for their assets. Switzerland presents them with 3 convincing arguments. The first, physical security. It's the very signatory of the Congress of Vienna who are at war, busy defending their border or conducting invasions. Violating the agreement by invading Switzerland will not bring them any strategic gain. Switzerland will therefore not be invaded. The second is monetary stability. Throughout Europe, printing presses are financing the war. Currencies are losing value with each passing day. To avoid massive deflation, the Swiss central bank decided to abandon the gold standard. But due to its non-intervention in the conflict, the Swiss franc resists inflation much better than their neighbors' currencies. The third is taxation. To finance the war, states are massively increasing taxes. The immediate result is flight of private capital to Switzerland. During the war, funds managed by Swiss banks will triple. For the first time, neutrality is converted into gold. Switzerland repeats exactly the same maneuver during World War II. In 1945, it's the only industrialized country with its infrastructure still intact. Swiss factories can produce for the entire continent. Capital continues to flow in. But then, is neutrality alone enough to transform any small country into global safe? Well, not really. In 1939, Belgium declared itself neutral, but it was invaded in 1940. Its neutrality protected neither its borders nor its economy. Why? Up to this point, you might think that Switzerland simply got lucky, imposed neutrality, and neighbors busy fighting against each other. But the truth is that starting in the 20th century, Switzerland decided to take its destiny into its own hands and arm its neutrality. It understood before everyone that a simple treaty protects no one. Ink on a piece of paper isn't enough. For Switzerland, its position as a financial and diplomatic hub was a matter of survival. Invading Switzerland meant destroying the place where business was still being done. Whether the gold was allied or nazi, Switzerland had no judgment to make. Swiss banking secrecy dates from 1934, but Swiss banks has long been offering numbered accounts. They are not anonymous in a strict sense, but provide protection offered nowhere else. In 2013, the economist Gabriel Zucman made this calculation. 80% of offshore fortunes in Switzerland wouldn't be declared to the tax authorities of resident countries. The Swiss National Bank, the press, and the more cautious academic consensus talk rather of 10%. But unlike Belgium, Switzerland noticed that diplomacy will not be enough. The National Redoubt Plan aimed to mine as many roads, tunnels, bridges as possible. They counted 2,000 to 3,000 demolition structures. The Gotha tunnel, for example, contained 3.5 tons of explosive, enough to block the passages for at least months or even years. The Swiss army didn't need to win, only to make the invasion too costly. Swiss nuclear deterrence is its theorem and its creativity. If that failed, the instructions were simple. Retreat into the Alps to force the invaders into an uphill. War against 430,000 men who know the environment perfectly, out of 4 million inhabitants at that time. That's proportionally more than France and even Germany. Today, even if Swiss neutrality is contested, the culture of its neutrality is still deeply rooted. Geneva houses more than 40 international organizations, including the UN, the WHO, and WTO. Each year, more than 3,500 diplomatic meetings are held there. Unlike many European countries, military service is still mandatory in Switzerland. Each citizen can keep their weapons at home if they want. A SIG SG-550 assault rifle with 28 weapons held per 100 inhabitants. Switzerland is one of the most armed European countries. Yet, this doesn't prevent them from having one of the lowest homicide rates in the world. The structures of the national redoubts are still present but no longer operational. Add to that more than 9 million bunker spaces that amply the population. For comparison, only 4% of French people will secure a place in one of their few thousand bunkers. Concretely, things haven't changed. If the worst thing was to happen, every Swiss person could find a refuge there. Neutrality but armed. In the collective imagination, Switzerland is the country of banks and luxury watchmaking. Patek Philippe sells the world's most expensive watch for 31 million francs. Swiss banks control $11.6 trillion in assets, nearly 11 times the national GDP. But in the end, the Swiss banking and financial industry only represents 10% of its GDP. Watchmaking barely 1.5%. Reducing Switzerland to banks and watches means misses 90% of what really makes it wealth today. Beyond the cliches, here's what the number actually says about the sector where the Swiss men and women actually work. Switzerland has no access to the sea, yet it houses MSC, the world's leading container shipping group. From Geneva, MSC controls more than 800 ships and nearly 20% of global containers maritime trade. The transport and logistics sector represents 4% of Swiss GDP. Switzerland has no raw materials, yet it houses Nestle, the world's largest agribusiness group. Vitol, Mercuria, Cargill, Geneva is the world's main trading hub. This is where the fate of part of the oil we consume or the grains we eat is decided. You know it, Switzerland is 60% mountains, including 25% impassable terrains. That doesn't stop the real estate and construction sectors from weighing 21% of its GDP. Switzerland has neither oil nor Silicon Valley, yet it exports more value per capita than China and the United States. Its main engine, the pharmaceutical and the chemical industry, which represents nearly 7% of its GDP and more than 49% of Swiss exports. Two giants, Roche and Novartis, dominate the global scene. But then, why such success? How is this small country of 9 million inhabitants that has nothing going for it so present and influential in so many sectors? You are starting to understand, in Switzerland's history, these advantages are always due to bad luck and judicious decisions. I told you, Switzerland had always has a bit of luck. It's located at the heart of what geographers called the Blue Banana, the European arc that concentrates 80% of the continent's wealth and population. From London to Milan, passing through Rio, Zurich and Geneva, in the densest economic corridor of the Western world, Switzerland is right in the middle. But luck doesn't explain everything. Switzerland is like Apple to some countries. It doesn't try to do it cheaper, but better. Novartis and Roche develop innovative medicines and tests that the whole world fights over. ABB and Fisher produce rare, irreplaceable and unique industrial equipment. Switzerland is ranked first worldwide in Global Innovation Index 2025. Its secret, a unique dual education system in the world. From age 16, nearly 70% of youth choose apprenticeship. They alternate between school and company for 3 or 4 years. A beginning carpenter can easily earn between 4,000 and 4,500 francs in Switzerland after tax. Manual trades are respected and even celebrated. The technical training path in Switzerland is much more valued and socially accepted than in farms. Universities are not left behind and ranked among the best in the world. EPFL, ETH, and the University of St. Gallen compete every year with MIT and Stanford. They leave Frank's National Polytechnic far behind. Graduates from these schools end up in cutting-edge industries: pharmacology, finance, engineering, technology. 27 Nobel Prize winners are Swiss. In the country, theory and practice contribute hand in hand and on equal footing to national competitiveness. A GDP per capita of $103,000, third in the world, while preserving an average hourly rate of 38 Swiss francs, also among the highest in the world. The average salary is 7,000 francs gross monthly. The unemployment rate is 2.8%, almost 3 times less than in France. But Switzerland does more than produce resources. It produces trust. In Switzerland, direct democracy gives citizens unique power. They can block or approve any law through a referendum, road rhythms with stability. In Switzerland, direct democracy leads to decisions that are certainly slow, but rarely bad. No explosive political crisis, no fiscal revolution, no dominant ideology, just cold pragmatism. Take for example the rail transport system. In 2024, 93.2% of Swiss trains arrived on time. In Switzerland, on time means less than 3 minutes late. compared to 5 minutes in France, 6 in Germany, and 15 minutes in Italy. Switzerland tops the European overall punctuality ranking. France, with 91.9% punctuality for its regional trends in 2019, ranks 11th out of 16 countries analyzed. That's Swiss pragmatism. Moreover, this model of democracy values individual responsibility and reinforces a culture of trust. 62% of Swiss people surveyed have confidence in their institutions. The OECD average is 39%. In France, this figure even drops to 30%. This trust is also reflected in their relationship with money. Work, spend little, save, invest. The Swiss retirement system rests on 3 pillars: public old age insurance, mandatory occupational pension, voluntary private savings. These last 2 pillars functions on capitalization. Swiss people save and invest throughout their working life, result one of the highest savings rate in the world and a population accustomed to thinking long term. But it's especially on budget discipline that this culture reversed itself. In the 1990s, Swiss federal finances experienced a deep crisis. Debt exploded by several dozen GDP points in a decade. The response? In 2001, Swiss people voted 85% of a new constitutional article, the debt break. The rule is very simple. Expenditures must not exceed revenue, except in case of major economic crisis. Parliament and the Federal Council are now constitutionally obligated to respect this rule when preparing the budget. Since then, discipline has returned. In 2024, the Consolidated Confederation budget showed a surplus of 11.3 billion Swiss francs. It's not taxes that allows it, but surprisingly efficient public economic system. But then, where does this surplus go? Largely into repayment of previous debts and building reserves. Switzerland seems to work like clockwork, at least on the surface. But behind the polished face, the girls are still far from turning perfectly. I told you earlier, the Swiss median salary is 7,000 Swiss francs gross monthly. For a family of 4, current expenses reach 5,000 to 6,000 francs. For a 60 meter square in Lausanne, count on between 2,400 and 2,800 francs per month. Food is 58% more expensive than in France. For some products, prices are even double. If we adjust purchasing power, Swiss people will only be 11% richer than Germans, despite salaries twice as high. They are only 30% to 50% richer than the French. There is no miracle method. Swiss salaries go with Swiss prices. Switzerland has one of the best healthcare systems in the world, but this system isn't free. Each adult must subscribe to mandatory basic insurance between 350 and 450 francs per month. In Switzerland, mandatory deductions are lower, but everyone is responsible for their health. Of course, the more means you have, the better you are covered. Switzerland is ranked the 4th worst country in Europe for housing shortage. The home ownership rate is 42%, one of the lowest in the European continent. In other words, 58% of households are renters. In the canton of Zurich, one of the richest in Switzerland, only 9% of couples aged 30 to 40 can consider buying an apartment. Switzerland is far from being a model of social justice among wealthy countries. In Switzerland, poverty very much exists. In this quaint, essentially liberal country, 8.1% of the population lives below the poverty line. Interesting fact, 10.1% in Norway, an equally wealthy country that has bet on a radically opposite approach based on redistribution. It's also between 14 and 15% in France. But unlike Norway, Switzerland still lags behind on gender parity. Women earn on average 90% less than men. In female economic participation, Switzerland ranks on 20 out of 33 OECD countries, partly due to exorbitant childcare costs, among the highest in the world. Since 2018, Swiss banks have the legal obligation to collect tax data on their clients residing abroad and then share it with tax authorities of partner countries. It's the AEOI, Automatic Exchange of Information. Yet, the recent collapse of Credit Suisse raised questions. In the bank's vaults, accounts linked to high-level criminals, traffickers, oligarchs. Despite regulation, the culture of discretion remains tenacious. Switzerland is a living paradox, a tiny country without sea, without oil, that became in a century a safe, a patent factory, and a haven of stability. So, should we import the Swiss model to Africa? Switzerland proves that a wealthy nation can very well focus education around its professional tracks. Swiss neutrality has a unique asset, but for African nations, it would be very complicated to add this asset to its deck of cards. With a nuclear bomb and territories on 5 continents, France engages in numerous alliance games to protect its interest and survival. Neutrality simply isn't available, both for France and African countries. Swiss democracy is often cited as a perfect political system. Should we draw inspiration from it? The answer to this question will deserve an entire video. Switzerland is an ideal of wealth and budget management. That's undeniable. But be careful, it's not a sufficient condition to guarantee the happiness of its inhabitants. The country is ranked 3rd best in terms of GDP per capita, but sits 13th place among the happiest countries, just behind New Zealand, which is however only ranked 25th best in GDP per capita. The Swiss laboratory has the merit of proving that a game that seems bad from the start doesn't seal a nation's fate. With the right decision and a bit of creativity, it can even make it a brand advantage. The question that worries most about today is the flip side of legendary Swiss stability. Productivity only grows by 0.3 to 0.5% per year, half as fast as in the 1990s. It's a sign of an economy struggling to innovate technologically outside of finance and pharmacology. The two giants, Roche and Novartis alone, represents nearly 40% of the country's private R&D spendings. But contrary to what you might think, on the startup side, Switzerland does very well with 13 unicorns recorded. In France, there are 29 unicorns. Nevertheless, you have probably never heard of Swiss unicorns. Startup investments in Switzerland are oriented mainly towards deep tech and biotech. The sectors are known for their extremely long maturation time and gigantic capital needs. This choice aligns with Switzerland's economic positioning. We don't do it cheaper, we do it better. That's why, despite these innovations, stagnation continues to worry. Golden stagnation, comfortable but dangerous. Despite the excellence of its scientific education, Switzerland only occupies 12th place globally in AI. France is ranked 5th. Nearly 60% of Swiss energy comes from oil and gas. Ultimately, the question Switzerland poses is similar to Norway's. This question all wealthy nations ask themselves sooner or later: should you chase growth when comfort is enough? Switzerland yet doesn't have the answer, but it's an excellent laboratory to find it. Norway, with similar starting configurations and the same wealth, has taken a totally opposite direction. Which of these two models will triumph? To be continued. Ciao.